Welcome to the Open Era Podcast. My name is Devang and I'm joined as always by Mr. Simon Bushell. Bush, it has been a few weeks, but we're back, baby. How are you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. I have my parents coming to visit me in Vancouver, which is always an interesting experience to have a family member come visit you, or family members, I should say.
What's your stress level rating out of 10?
Without wanting to incriminate myself on a podcast. No, it's a solid 5. It's fine.
Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. I the pressure to entertain is quite high. And then sometimes I know with parents, it's like, what do they like? What do they like to do? How can we kill time? But that's lovely. Hope you guys are having a good time. I played tennis at a real tennis club tonight, sir. Mm-hmm. It was quite the experience.
Did you win?
I was playing with my sister, so we're just kind of hitting around, and she plays pretty regularly and competitively in this club. So I was kind of acting as her Sasha Bajin, I guess, her Patrick Mortagalu. But no, it was the mindset of the tennis club member is fascinating, and I think there's so many levels to it. And I was getting the inside info from my sis, but I kind of want to join, Bush. I almost want to be part of this now.
How much do you reckon it costs to join that club? Or is it one of those things that we shouldn't ask?
A bit. It's a bit. But honestly, it's not too bad considering everything else you kind of get with it. But yeah, with the economy these days, I'm sure I should probably pay for groceries first and then that. But it snowed so badly here today as well that the idea of playing outside seems like a far dream. So.
You know what tennis doesn't have, especially tennis media? I don't think it covers the club, like the country club side of it enough, is what my reading thinks is.
I think there's levels to it because, like, remember when we went to Hollybrook in North Van? Mm-hmm. Like, that's a level I have never seen, Like, I think that level is something that's above anywhere you or I could be a member. I feel like that to me was elite tennis, whereas I think this club was more like there was camps and like kids playing, so I think that the vibes are better in that way.
I guess the question that we always have to lead with, does it have a grass court? Yes or no?
It doesn't, but here's the most shocking aspect, and now we gotta have Ermi on because she'll talk about this at length, my sister, but they renovated like part of the facilities to facilitate pickleball players.
Oh my god, the
court's really nice. Yeah, and it was a big deal apparently. So the politics, man. The politics of sport, of access, never ending.
Stunned silence from me. How dare they do that?
The best part is in the gymnasium, there's basketball hoops, right? But a sign over the hoop says not in use. as in, if you were to shoot a basketball in that hoop, you would be reprimanded.
I really thought you were going in a different direction and it was going to read death to pickleball above it.
No, I had to put on my best to impress people, No, it was a good time, good fun hitting. The courts are fast, Bush. I'll say that. I also never play indoors, so I felt like I was way better than I actually am. I'm curious if you find it similar. Like I feel like with the elements being controlled, you can kind of let it loose a bit.
I'm such a fair weather tennis player, and the comedy of it is that I'm a fair weather because I only play in the winter. I play once a week indoor at a perfectly air-conditioned club. And it's like, well, I sure as shit ain't playing in the summer. It's warm out there and windy. I can only play in perfect conditions now.
It's freaking hot, man. There's wildfires. Can't breathe half the time. Yeah, it's... I will say, though, like towards the end of... the end of fall here, we played outside on like a kind of clay court. It wasn't like your red clay, but it was really, I don't know. I think that experience is hard to replicate indoors. It does add a little something to it when you get the breeze and the touch of the dirt or grass or hard court or whatever you're playing on. So as much as I did like playing indoors, I do feel like I'm more at home on the streets with your less regal courts.
It's not a true clay court experience until you're getting fucking clay blown into your eyes. Every 30 seconds. Yeah.
Tears of pain. All right, Bush. Well, we've run a couple open era golds since we've been gone. And since we've been gone, tennis has continued. But before we get into like what's happened since we last spoke, kind of wanted to do a Australian Open recap of sorts, even though we're a couple weeks removed, because I often find that this is when we maybe have the best chance to look back, and we did that the last few Grand Slams, so why not here? Where do you want to start with this?
I think it was interesting because I was looking at some of I've been trying to keep up with the sport, obviously, since the Australian Open, but it's probably been about a week since I checked in on like the live results of what was going on, just how busy my work has been and other things have been going on. And I was like, oh, yes, Sinner's playing today. Jesus Christ, Jannik Sinner won the Australian Open. He's a Grand Slam champion. And it was one of those moments where, yes, even being removed 3 weeks from it, it still doesn't quite feel right. And maybe the moment has sunk in a little more for some other people, but it really is a monumental shift in the men's game to have another Grand Slam winner. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from me. Maybe the other side of it is just maybe the stunning normality of Sabalenka's second Grand Slam and how easy in retrospect it did look. But those are the two things that stuck out to me.
I think it's fascinating. Like you see Jannik Sinner in the Rotterdam draw and it immediately juices it up, right? Like we're recording this on a Thursday evening in our time in Toronto and Vancouver Bush. But just the idea of Jannik Sinner being there was a big deal, even though, I mean, truth be told, let's look at Andre Rublev's her second seed. Holger Rune went out early. Her catch went out early. Like this wasn't a loaded field, but with Jannik there, it felt like must-watch stuff. And I think that is the mark of a true champion, the mark of someone who is kind of reached that level where once you're there, I hope he seizes it. You know, I think we've also seen a few other players maybe get to the same point or pinnacle of their career, and through injury or through hard luck or through poor results, not been able to maintain it. I don't want to say Dominic Thiem because I feel like we mention him too often when it comes to sad stories, or maybe even your Juan Martín del Potros, but I'm not saying at all that he's going to be like that. That being said, God, I hope everything works out for him injury-wise and everything's okay, because it's one of those things where you never know how things will crumble this way. Like I think with the big three, and I know Rafa got hurt a lot, and Novak's had some injury issues as well. The longevity was aided by the fact that overall they escaped the nasty stuff early, I thought, right? And I think maintaining health for these guys, your Sinners, your Alcarazes, early on is really important not to derail things.
Totally, yeah. And I think being a few weeks, 3 weeks removed from the Australian Open, and our two champions have only just started playing again, Sinner playing this week in Rotterdam and Sabalenka, I think, tiptoeing into the idea of playing again next week from the sounds of things. It kind of feels like the decompression time post Melbourne is kind of over, and we're getting into the meat of it. It's such a wild long season, isn't it? We're in the middle of February and we're like, alrighty, here we go. We get ready to go again.
It's wild enough that Milos Raonic was saying I wanted to make it back in the top 50. And I'm like, you know what? He might just do it. He might freaking do it. Holy cow. A lot of cool stories. Yeah. And we'll get into what's happened since. I did want to touch quickly, Bush, on a few things. The attendance, this was the biggest Australian Open ever in terms of attendance. I do think with this specter of Saudi Arabia looming, and we'll talk about this newfangled six king slam that's happening in parting shots, but it does feel, Simon, that Craig Tiley and crew they're battening up the hatches. They know there's going to be threats, whether it be massive prize money offered to the biggest stars during that same calendar window for them. So I feel like it makes sense that they're concerned, but I wonder how you feel about Australia's status, maybe in light of what we're learning about Saudi Arabia's investment into tennis.
Yeah, I think the biggest question out of all of that is if there was going to be a Grand Slam replaced, which one would be the most likely for it to happen? And it's kind of telling that I think your brain sounded like it went straight to Australia.
Yeah, sadly. And it's but that being said, like the blueprint they have carved out in terms of sport, in terms of like a cultural event, like it's a big deal, this tournament. And I think it would be one of those lines that once it is crossed, what else is next? You know, like if they're willing to, or if it does shake out that we do have almost like a competing tour alongside the ATP and WTA, like there's so many big questions to be answered. And I think the idea of the people getting their shit together in time doesn't feel likely before we do have an event that ends up drawing away some of the big stars.
Well, I think there is a comparable point here, which is that the Masters fast approaches in the golf calendar, and this is really the first full season. I'm not really counting last year because you have all of the nonsense that's going on in between the infighting that exists in the tour, and this season really is the first one where it's been like a détente and everyone's kind of accepted the fate of what's going on in golf. And I wonder how the Masters is going to play out this year and how it's going to feel comparatively to other years, because it's going to feel strange, I think.
Well, I mean, and apologies for the golf talk, but Jon Rahm, who is the world number one from Spain, multi-slam winner, when he went to live and you compared the fields, because they were both playing at the same time, the live field was better. Mm-hmm. More names, more stars. And I do wonder if we do get into that situation, because I mean, maybe not us, but I do think tennis is so star driven in certain areas and in terms of revenue dollars and marketing dollars and TV dollars. Like they need the names. So we will see how that draws. They did do big numbers on ESPN, Sinner, Djokovic, Bush, which again, in this day and age, I'm impressed.
That anyone watches live television?
Yeah, at 3:30 or whatever time this was on. Like I had the idea that this is the least accessible big tennis event for us.
I was
by far
listening to a podcast this morning, which was talking about how the only thing that's keeping traditional live appointment viewing television
sports
is sports and news. I think the point they were making, is live breaking news and all of the obvious bullshit that goes on around there. If you count like Fox News as news, or Sky News in the UK, like take your pick of anything that's going on in various countries of how the news has been taken over by corporate overlords. And the podcast was kind of making the point that if a streaming service really wanted to take a full whack and kill traditional television, all they needed to do was start taking bits and pieces away from the sporting, from the major calendars of all these sports around the world. I think they were specifically talking about the Super Bowl in this situation, that if Amazon really wanted to kill traditional media, all they had to do was buy the rights to the Super Bowl or the NFL outright from someone else. And that would, the industry as we know it would fall apart. So I wonder if tennis sits on the periphery of that, which we've kind of seen it a little bit of happen, which is that piecemeal, it's been taken away and it's been changed, but it's not been a wholesale change yet.
I love our Discord for many reasons, but a big one is like everyone's from different places and the way people watch is different. And I think one of the things I'm learning the most is how fractured it is amongst the markets you're in, or depending on where you are. It's the plan available to you is totally different than it is to you or I, Bush, maybe in Canada, or someone in the States, or someone in Brazil, or someone in South Africa. And I know VPNs are widely available and people know what they're doing online, but holy cow, like this has to be front of mind for these folks going forward. I did see, especially North America, the regional networks have collapsed, Bally Sports, and now they're being bought up by a kind of consortium, which includes some of the big players like your Disneys and your Amazons. So I think we're getting close to that, Bush, where they are going to maybe decide to team up and we'll have this kind of old system replace, or this new system just basically be the old system where the powers that be are getting into it together. Yeah.
I think actually this year might be a pretty telling year in terms of the media landscape, just with the way the interest rates are, with the vibe session as it currently is. I'm laughing at my own joke. I'm curious to see what happens by the end of the year, whether or not we're going to lose some big players and we're going to look back at the course of the year and think, oh yeah, that was pretty big. Can't believe that happened this year.
The winners, Jannik Sinner, he's Italian. He has to do the rounds. Bush met the Italian PM. I know you love that.
Yeah, always nice going to see a fascist. Self-proclaimed fascist as well, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I didn't see any of the photo op. I don't know if you gleaned anything from the interaction.
That she's really small. That was, I guess.
I mean, he's a large carrot, man. Sab's getting a lot of shine. Vogue Australia thought the interview with the WTA website was also really solid.
So did I. I thought it was quite telling, though, coming out of that first Grand Slam win. I thought Sabalenka got some pretty good coverage, but it was kind of a little bit of a collective shrug. Muted. I thought, it wasn't. Yep. It didn't really have the same impact. And I know a second-time champion is not as interesting as a first-time champion, but the way that she ran roughshod through the field, maybe the Belarusian aspect of this is still fairly front of mind, as I'm sure it should be, in terms of the way that the WTA and tennis in general has approached the nation and the flags and that sort of thing. But I was surprised by the clearly wasn't deathly silence, but it was surprisingly muted.
I think a part of it, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but a large part of the WTA's hype is like the idea that anyone can win, or like there's so many contenders and there's so many people, there's 8 people, there's 9 people who could potentially walk away with the title at the end. And to see someone absolutely blitz everyone and kind of destroy that narrative, maybe kind of surprise people in like a shocked way where it's like, okay, like, well then, like the final was a demolition as well. I think we were waiting for the Goff match and she passed that test with flying colors. I wonder if it's a bit of that, where it was just so one-sided and so dominant that they weren't spoon-fed the narratives they needed. But if you like zoom out a bit, like everything about her, very marketable. Like take the flag away, shit. And like I know it's something to say in 2024. We can't really do that apparently, but she seems like she'd be top of the list if you're someone that's outside of tennis and you watched a 10 to 20 minute sizzle really, be like, that's her. That's the person that we want to talk about.
Must be the grunting Dev. Has to be that.
Well, I'm not even joking. Probably that too. It's probably like 3 of, it's a combo, but yeah, I think that's definitely a big part to play. Anything else Aussie Open Bush before we get to some winners from when we last spoke?
It's so cold in Vancouver that I just kind of wish I was in the southern hemisphere at the moment.
Oh God, yeah. I'm watching this this event in Buenos Aires with Charlie, and I'm like, God damn, take me to the Argentina Open. I'll even go to Delray, man. I'll go to Delray Beach. I don't give a damn.
Why would you do that to yourself?
They had a really cool. You could bring like 6 canned goods or perishable goods and get night ticket or day passes for the tournament. So I thought that was really cool.
Great. Now I look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Definitely go and do that. Support that initiative.
Shouts to Delray Beach. Okay. Winners. So on the women's side, Elena Ostapenko, who we will talk about a bit more, but holy cow, winner in Linz. Shouts to Luke Foresti, friend of the show, who was there. Diana Schneider. She of the greatest headband on the tour. She of doing the NCAA thing while also playing in the pros. She won Hua Hin, Abu Dhabi, Rybakina, Transylvania. The return of Karolina Pliskova, Bush, who, I don't know about you, but I kind of removed from my mind for a bit. To see her return at this time was a bit stunning.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've seen the kind of plummet of her ranking as well. I think she's outside the world's top 50 now. So it's one of those that it would be a nice return to form. That serve's not got anywhere. So she's always going to be a dangerous floater in any tournament she's in. And it's actually really good to see her winning tournaments again.
Yeah, I watched her play Naomi Osaka this week. She beat us. I mean, I don't think Naomi was at her best, obviously, but good signs, very good signs for Karolina Pliskova. On the men's side, Alexander Bublik in Montpellier, Tommy, a.k.a. Thomas Paul, winning in Dallas. Thomas Paul, Ugo Humbert in Marseille, Luciano Darderi in Cordoba. I think I did a good job there. I think I did a very good job. The
way you were reading it out was so like they read out the Oscar nominations and winning in Montpellier.
Yeah, I watched some of Open 13 because I love the name and I wanted to see how Grigor did in that final. Disappointing. Shouts to Ugo Humbert. Tommy Paul. A lot of Americans in that Dallas tourney, Bush. How are you feeling about the American guys right now? I know I used to be in on Taylor Fritz, but my feelings are not that strong at the moment about any of them.
Well, Thomas Paul would probably be your Thomas Paul. Yeah. Jesus, sounds so ridiculous. If ever there was a third,
you'd be mad.
brother.
I bet you'd be mad. He'd be mad if he knew that some clowns out there and doing a podcast called him Thomas.
It's a strange era, isn't it, for US men's tennis? Because I think you look at it and you would say you have 4 players inside of the world's top 20. That is a good, healthy ecosystem to be in. Like, it's competitive. It shows the strength in depth on the men's side of things specifically. The women's obviously much different because you have a Grand Slam champion and you have 2 players that are head and shoulders above the rest of the field in the US, I mean. And the men's is just a lot of dudes, I guess, without being too disrespectful to...
Dudes being guys. Guys being dudes.
To relive that famous Vine. Bring it back, people.
That Vine was so good. God damn it. Do you want to save Leylah for after the break or talk about her now? Let's save it. Let's come back after the break. We'll do parting shots. We'll talk about Leylah Annie Fernandez. We'll talk about Nadal, Saudi Arabia. Talk about Andy Roddick, some Andy Murray, some Navratilova Everett stuff. All of that coming up next on Open Era. Welcome back to the Open Era podcast, Simon. Parting shots. Oh, hell, a whole hell of a lot to get to. Barely was able to say that. But I did want to start, I mentioned it just before the break, Leylah Fernandez. The player that, this was said on the Discord, but I felt it was kind of mean, but also very accurate. If some of the other Canadian players had Leylah's heart, how far would they have gone by now, Simon? I think that's a fair question.
Such a wonderful backhanded compliment.
It's so mean. It's bad. But also, come on. It has been a road back. And I think Leylah, maybe I won't say we, because I might be speaking for you, but I always kind of thought that like the baseline or like the floor was high enough where she would never really go away and she would never really fall far out of contention because of that commitment and that willingness to put it all out there and also the steadiness of her game. But I do think there are questions about like, would the weapons be enough or would the weapons be enough to sustain her being inside the top 20 for a while, let's say, when the game is so full of depth and so full of like really, really good, like Emma Navarro, for example, but someone you've been talking about. Like, I watched her against Rybakina and I'm like, this player is phenomenal, but also Leylah beat her in a juniors final. Mm-hmm. I kind of, and I'm saying this after a loss in the quarterfinals, but I kind of think that she's almost perfectly placed to kind of level up this year because I think she's come through a really tough period looking much better game wise. And I'm a bit surprised that it's happened maybe this quickly as she's still on the early half of 21.
Level up. Christ, have we got Boris Johnson on this podcast? Rishi Sunak. Writing PR for Open Era. You mentioned top 20. The question is, did you mean in doubles or in singles, Dev? Oh, come on, again.
Oh, come on. Boo.
Laughing at my own jokes. Although I guess more to be serious on that point, she's ranked 19 at the moment, so she is inside of the top 20 in doubles and is, I think, 40?
She's 33.
Oh, 33.
Yeah, I think
okay.
she's 33, something like that.
So this is a really good player. Like, let's not lose sight of how good of a player she is. I think with some players you can get the sense that they will go on runs in singles. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that is this player. Like, I'm not convinced that she has like incredible deep runs in her. Just I think her results over the last year perhaps has been an indication of that. Maybe she's just a really steady player at this point who is going to find this level for the foreseeable future. And I only say that because what are the kind of players that go on really deep runs? They're either incredibly consistent players who never miss and they walk through a tournament on the basis that everyone just blows up around them. So like your grinders who have a decent serve, or you have or you have people with massive weapons, and I don't think she's either of those.
I think Josh mentioned this in the Discord, but like Angie Kerber, is that kind of someone you could like? it wouldn't be obvious that she was going to win slams, but it wasn't a huge surprise.
Oh, that's such a good comparison. God damn it. Why is that?
Josh does that. He does that a lot.
So frustrating. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
But no, and that's what it is, right? Like, I don't think anyone, well, I mean, some people probably did, but like, I don't think people were picking Angie Kerber for those tournaments in which she won. But at the end of the day, it was like, yep, it makes sense. She was rock solid, immaculately consistent on both sides. She could be able to handle the pace of someone like a Serena or some of the bigger hitters. And I think that's what Leylah will have to do. But really, really promising signs. And once again, like, this is coming off of the back of a tough Aussie Open, losing to Alicia Parks, but she does well at the Billie Jean King Cup finals. She won in Hong Kong last year in October. I know it's a bit farther away, but she made a run in Nanchang. Like, things are looking up, and I really admire the perseverance, because we've heard a lot of players talking about the loneliness of this game and the expectations and finding a way to fight back and believe in yourself. And it's easier said than done, and she looks like she's on the right path. All right, man, Simon.
I went away and looked at Angie Kerber's career Grand Slam before. She didn't make a final until her 10th year on tour. That's crackers. A Grand Slam final, I mean. So yeah, it goes to show you, doesn't it? This was a world number one, a 3-time Slam champion, went to 4 finals. So,
do you know who won the most titles in 2016, the year that Angie won 2 slams?
Serena Williams?
Dominika Sipolkova. I memory hold 2016 entirely, I think.
Really?
I tried to forget everything about this year. Monica Puig won gold that year too, so maybe that's why I don't remember anything.
She's got to be in the conversation for shortest ever champion at tour level on the women's side, right?
Yeah, I think so. Sivakova, yeah, I think so. Okay, let's get into the stuff. Bush, I don't know if you saw Morgan Riddle, Taylor Fritz's better half, was at the Super Bowl. She posted a really harrowing couple slides on Instagram stories recounting the abuse and horrible language that was directed towards her by male fans, drunken male fans at the Super Bowl. One instance included a man and his son, and the son basically calling out the dad for being an asshole, like really brutal stuff. But I thought it was interesting, Simon. Like, Morgan's done a phenomenal job covering tour life and showing people what it's really like to be on these tours and play these sports and be on these teams and staffs. But another window, I doubt she had experienced that at a tennis event of a similar vein, but really, really shitty.
Yeah, it is really shitty. And you don't want to come across as patronizing in this situation, because like this is a really talented professional woman who's really good at what she does. Like, in the sense of, I think it's easy to look down at what her kind of professional career is and how she markets herself and her partner and everything. But she's really fucking good at it, Dev. Like, really, really good. And if it was as easy as everyone says it would be, then we'd all be doing it.
Companies aren't cutting you checks for $100,000 to do three photos. They're not doing that because they want to be charity cases. It's because she's really good at it. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you want to go on the Super Bowl, but like that, it's so American. Like, it's the most American thing ever, isn't it?
Oh God.
Is there something more American than the Super Bowl?
Red Zone has ruined American football.
You can't watch a full game.
I can't do it. I'm so I can't watch North American sports at this point.
This guy would rather watch Norwich versus freaking Millwall, because there's no stoppages.
Just give me uninterrupted play. Goodness me. Jesus Christ.
Okay, moving on. The ATP released an ad ahead of the 53rd season, and it was actually good, Simon. I think people are going a little too overboard with how good it was. It was a bit of an office style shot. You know, the players being funny. Novak was funny. Andy Murray was good. But yeah, I mean, I think the bar is so low that we're just amazed when they put out something that isn't utter ass. We're like, this is actually not terrible.
That's where I landed on this, which is, it's fine. Maybe it's slightly better than fine.
We don't need to be fainting and be like, ah. oh, this is the best. You can, though. You can.
Good Lord. Oh, well done, everyone. You did your job completely adequately.
Okay, this is the Nadal Saudi Six Kings tournament. The run through, Simon, the Six Kings Slam will be a multi-million-dollar tennis exhibition featuring Djokovic, Nadal, Alcaraz, Sinner. I think Holger Rune is in there for some reason as well. Taking place in Riyadh this October. Indirect competition to the ATP Tour. Sounds like the dates will be against a relatively big tournament. So that's a big deal. The other big deal is that it sounds like Saudi Arabia is about to finalize a deal to host the WTA Tour Finals. Should be announced later in February. Those are two massive bits of news, but I think Nadal and Saudi is maybe the biggest, Simon. I'm curious where you fall on all this.
I mean, it's awful, isn't it? It's really, really awful for...
I've seen some rumors. I know we had a couple posts in the Discord, like maybe the Rafa's doing this for his academy and he's just trying to secure funding, and like this is about the greater good. And Josh put also in the Discord, you put a Spanish article where he's speaking in Spanish, or he's probably obviously a little more comfortable. But he's talking about like the way money is viewed and how people don't look at money as a bad thing in Saudi Arabia. And I don't know. It didn't feel good. If he's helping the kids in the academy, is that supposed to be used as that's fine then kind of justification?
You know what I thought was really bizarre on this one? The line about like potentially helping the academy and all that sort of stuff with the money. And I think I don't think I want to like too strongly attach my my belief that's true.
It's libel laws.
Yeah, and it feels a bit dicey. But at the same time, if there's any element of truth in it, a reminder that you are Rafael fucking Nadal. Yeah. You are not.
Yeah, I think you can call the king. I'm pretty sure you could call the king of Spain and be like, hey man,
if you need money. Think of all the places that you could go that would give you the money. Jesus Christ, you're not a mum and pop situation here.
It's fascinating. There's the other stuff. This was in a Matthew Futterman article. He has that the PIF is closing in on a multi-year deal with the ATP and WTA for naming rights to each tour's rankings as well. So you're gonna see a lot of this everywhere. Like it's full on, and this is going to be maybe a year of seeing it maybe in a way we haven't before in terms of direct competition with events. Like I don't know which event would be in October that would be like a huge shock if some players miss. Let me check this out. Actually, probably you're looking at like the Paris Masters getting screwed as they usually do, but maybe Swiss indoors, maybe Vienna, maybe maybe the Stockholm Open, maybe the European Open. Lots of history at these places, but I don't want to sound like Europe deserves all these things. And it's like, yeah, don't take the game into Europe. Definitely not. But I do want to know how this will be used to improve the things that we've been looking to improve in the game. Like, will this do anything for anyone other than sports washing?
Well, I think we can ask Jordan Henderson here, can't we? Of someone that
he was my man got the red eye to Amsterdam with no money in his wallet. He didn't wait to get paid. That's how quickly he had to get out.
And I cannot believe that he made all those changes to the LGBTQ
radical change.
Yeah, like that quickly. It was astonishing to see him do those things. So I await with bated breath to see the changes that we made in that state because of the ATP World Tour or the WTA Tour Finals are being held there. So in case you can't tell, I am being sarcastic about this. It's shitty. It's really awful, Dev.
Mm-hmm. Stay tuned. More where that came from. All right, Bush, Andy Murray, not hanging it up.
No, and letting everyone know as well in the process. Surprisingly feisty. Is it surprisingly feisty as I say that and I hear it coming out of my mouth?
A little bit. Yeah. I didn't want to. Defensive was something I thought of, but I also don't think that's apt. I don't think that's a fair. But it did feel. I mean, imagine everyone's like, "Hey, man, stop playing. You're sickening us when they're playing." Like I could understand being upset by that.
Yeah, dude also ran into the Swifties as well during the course of the week.
I saw that.
100% don't do that. Stay 100% away from them.
Yeah.
On the other side
they
of
will
her
retire
private jet.
you. That'll be a forced retirement. He might not want to, but they will ensure that he will retire.
There's a reason that I'm not on any social media anymore, because I now refer to her as Miss Planet Killer, and
oh my God,
I get in trouble for doing that.
Oh, sir, please think of our friends and family. Okay.
Again, publicly traded podcast. We can't do this. We got to think of the fans.
The quote, Andy's replying to someone saying it's been an incredible journey by a remarkable band. Such a privilege to watch him. All good things come to an end, of course. So when should Andy Murray call time on his extraordinary career? So like, it's a pretty like milquetoast thing. He did tag Andy, which you don't do because you never know who's going to respond what he did. So with reading the thing he quoted, it does feel a bit defensive, but also, I mean, we've talked about this pretty openly on the podcast and the Discord, Simon. Like he loves sport. He loves the sport, or there's something else going on. But like, he doesn't really need to explain anything to us, I don't think. That being said, I'm not having a good time watching him, and I wonder how much fun he's having. And if he's having this much fun and wants to tweet about it, then I guess we have to take his word for it.
I feel like we've been here before, haven't we? I feel like we've ran this exact same segment like 3 times over the last 3 years of someone writing an article about him, telling him to hang it up.
Yeah.
And the response being
no.
like, fuck off. Perhaps we can just
move
on.
I back it. I back it. Swiftly, Andy Roddick has a podcast.
He does. What the world needs more. Former ex-pros on podcasts. I don't mind him at all, though. I think this is actually a good move in general.
Exactly.
Dude speaks well on the sport, and he is someone that I'm always thankful for, has a good opinion to have. At least I'm glad that he's still around the sport in a lot of ways. So good stuff. Thumbs up from me. I don't even have a shitty joke to make here. Just, I think it's good.
I genuinely, Andy Roddick, come on, Open Era. You got the time. We'd love to have you. I was hitting my forehand today, and I realized how it's hilarious. I love Fed. I'm a Roger guy. My forehand is exactly copied from Andy Roddick. I'm not Andy Roddick, but I just love the style and the way he did it. And I realize now I'm still doing it. Yeah. Alfie Hewitt, sir.
Alfie Hewitt. So Alfie Hewitt, fantastic person to have in the British tennis scene and the British sports scene in general, a really good ambassador for disability sports, in particular wheelchair tennis. That being said, Dev, I do have beef here because despite how good he is, he went to the Sports Personality of the Year. And did you see this quote at the end of the article? I got a little bit starstruck when Tommy Fury walked past.
Oh, what?
I watch a lot of YouTubers, but I wasn't brave enough to ask him for a photo.
No. He should be asking for your photo. God damn it.
Why, Dev? Why? What is going on here?
Well, we just talked about Morgan Riddle changing the game and being a megastar. YouTubers, man. Damn, we know. We know better than most.
They do indeed. Well, we do indeed. I don't know.
Do. I didn't click on this article yet, but Chris Everett and Navratilova Saudi beef? ?
Yes. So they had a bunch of shit thrown at them, didn't they, on the basis of how the Saudi state and the Saudi minister for the Olympic Committee, I want to say it was, said basically that it was disappointing that the two had taken a stance saying that it wasn't good that the WTA could possibly end up in Saudi. This is not particularly surprising. What perhaps is surprising is that Martina Navratilova had a good opinion for once. Yeah.
So I was like, holy shit. She nailed it. I love it that apparently the Get Your Facts Straight was directed back at them regarding what they said. The quote from Martina, I believe, was this, saying, not only is this a country where women are not seen as equal, it is a country where the current landscape includes a male guardianship law that essentially makes women the property of men, a country which criminalizes the LGBTQ community to the point of possible death sentences, a country whose long-term record on human rights and basic freedoms has been a matter of international concerns for decades. So they both co-wrote this in the Washington Post. We did not help build women's tennis for it to be exploited by Saudi Arabia is a very good headline. And I do mean, do you think they've talked with Billie Jean King about this? They must have, because I think BJK said some conflicting stuff as well.
I hope they have. I really, really hope they have.
It's a really powerful headline considering what's about to happen. So
Yeah, well, considering the sport is about to be sports washed, it's...
Yeah. Shall we end with my beloved Hindustan Times? Which if you don't have an ad blocker when you go to the Hindustan Times website, pray for yourself because you're effed.
So, the sheer ignorance of me here, Dev, to not understand, is the Hindustan Times a big deal? I don't know if it is or not.
Relatively, yeah. Relatively. It's one of the bigger ones, one of the bigger papers, I'd say. Published in English. One of the bigger English language papers, I'd say.
Cool. I don't know any of these things. I need to go to India at some point, Dev. We've said this a million times on the show, but...
You should, man. You should.
Anyway, the article is about Rohan Bopanna's overall success that he had in Australia, but in general, how the country is still really struggling. Indian tennis is grasping for breath is the headline in this article. It's good. It's well written. We have mentioned before that we'd like to do an episode on this, and we'd like to sort of dig into it a little deeper to understand what is going on in that country, the most populous country in the world, and to not have representation at the top of the men's and women's game in singles is kind of fascinating in its own right. So I think we still would like to do that at some point, Dev.
For sure. And I'm glad you mentioned this because shout out to Sumit Nagal for winning the challenger in Chennai, which is a big deal. Winning that at home, I think is awesome. And he beat a good player in Luca Nardi in the final. So that's really cool. Sumit Nagal is now in the top 100, which is a big deal because he is going to get a lot of chances to get into draws, make some money, and continue his dream. But yeah, the single situation is bad. Like doubles isn't great either, but there's also a seemingly lack of, let's say, camaraderie, perhaps, amongst the players that are playing. I think Bopanna is one of those guys that helps bridge everything together, but he's obviously not going to be around forever. Hopefully you have him in a role similar to your Janko Tipsarevich's or your Dan Nestors or people who can help grow the game forward. But yeah, so many questions. We have to do this episode. We'll bring in our Avengers level crew of Indian tennis experts for that.
He's so happy in the photo on this article.
Yeah, it's good.
He looks so proud. It's amazing.
Could you see the article through these 6,000 pop-up ads that came up during it or no?
I may or may not have an ad blocker installed.
Okay, good.
Depending on whether they got to be thrown in Google jail somewhere.
Hindustan Times was launched in 1924.
1924, long ago.
But yeah, thanks for having me look this up. I'm in a wiki hole now. Okay, let's end it, Simon. 2 challengers remaining. What do you got?
Politics Joe in the UK. It's a YouTube channel / also podcast. And I basically have no touch point with UK news other than obviously the forthcoming election and my ability to vote in it. It's just a fun channel. And there's some stuff about where it's funded and all the things and the backdrop behind it, but they do produce very funny, entertaining content. So it's nice for me to occasionally shout out something to do with my home country.
Love it. I'm going to shout out Victor Wembanyama because I went to go see the Raptors and the Spurs.
Oh, you did? How was he in person?
Man, he looks like CGI. He does not look real at all. And like we were kind of far. We moved up a bit in the second half because the Raptors were getting destroyed.
And his head was still at your level.
Are you talking about worth the price of admission or worth a ticket? Find a local NBA arena where Victor is playing and go watch him. It's insane, man. There was a literal no-fly zone around the rim at all times when he was on the court. It was incredible.
Awesome. He's such a good ambassador for the sport, especially the point during the All-Star break where he said Vegas was the worst place on earth. That made me laugh a lot. So he's all right in my books. Can't stay there longer than 3 days. I think that's the rule. I don't know. 2 days maybe now. 3 minutes. I've been there a few times. 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay. That is Open Era. Thank you so much for listening. A reminder, we are on patreon.com/Open Era. Join us there. Get the show ad free. Get it early on Sundays. Plus, join us on the Discord. The best damn part of this whole show where we're chatting tennis all the time. Chatting Saltburn 2 on the movies channel, which is fascinating. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard a lot. So with this knowledge from the crew in there, I'm very interested. But yeah, join us on Patreon. Get access to the Discord.
and have a blast talking tennis. And that's it for producer Dylan on the ones and twos, and for Simon. Thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next time.